Empire Energy Group Limited, ASX EEG on the Australian Stock Exchange, is an explorer and potential near-term producer of gas in central to northern Australia. And joining me right now is Managing Director Alex Underwood. Hello, Alex.
G'day, Tim.
Good to see you again. And what a marvelous opportunity for Australia with the Beetaloo Basin. And it's so huge. Can you remind us how important this energy reserve is to Australia? And also compare it to what began the energy transformation in the US on the same kind of energy reserve.
Sure. So the Beetaloo Basin is one of the largest shale gas deposits on Earth. It contains hundreds of trillions of cubic feet of gas in place across multiple gas-bearing zones and stretching across hundreds of kilometres from east to west and north to south in the central to northern part of the Northern Territory. The industry has known that there's a heck of a lot of gas in these shales for a long, long time based on some old drilling back in the 70s and 80s. But it was really only as a result of the advent of horizontal drilling and fracture stimulation in the US that it has now become a commercially viable option for Australia. If you look back at what's happened in the last 15 or 20 years in the US, there has been what is called a shale revolution. 70% of gas in America now comes from shale. They have the cheapest gas in the world. It trades at less than half the price of Australian gas and less than a third of what Japan and Korea and China are paying. And it's really built the US economy for the last 20 years. They've got, as I mentioned, the cheapest electricity and cheapest energy in the world. They've gone from being an importer to an exporter. It's resulted in a proliferation of manufacturing again in America, reshoring as they call it. And we now have that opportunity here in Australia. And I must say, it doesn't come a moment too soon. Australia, it's very well broadcast that we're facing significant energy shortages going forward. And, I believe, and many others do, that the Beetaloo Basin has the opportunity to be not only the solution to the East Coast gas crisis, but really the bedrock of a rebuilding of our industrial base and cheap energy for all Australians. So we're very excited to play a part in that.
And you're playing a part in that with quite a few other major players. I mean, you've got some seriously large household names in the same area.
That's right. So the other operators active in the basin right now are Tamboran Resources, another company listed here in Australia and the US. They've been quite active drilling and they've got some flow rates coming out very soon. Brian Sheffield of Formentera Partners, a very well-known Texan oil and gas leader, has invested heavily in this basin, and following some recent transactions, he will be becoming an operator. And also our next door neighbour in the basin, Santos, also have a very large position in the basin, and they've just announced that next year they'll be restarting horizontal appraisal drilling as well. So, there are some big names in this basin, and really they understand not only the geology, but the commercial opportunity that this basin presents.
And it always seems just out of reach of the market. So in terms of, this huge energy resource that's sitting there, what's stopping the approvals from going through and us releasing that energy? And as you say, bringing down the cost of manufacturing, bringing Australians cheaper energy, freeing up our export of gas as LNG through Darwin or the East Coast. What's stopping us?
Well, I think it has been a relatively long time coming, the Beetaloo. There was a moratorium on fracking, which is critical to the extraction of the gas from 2016 to 2018 up in the Territory, and the Northern Territory is our principal regulator. Um, that inquiry that occurred during the moratorium found that if you followed all the rules, fracking could be done safely. And we are now delighted that we have some support for our activities in the basin from both NT Labor, who ran the former NT government, and now the Country Liberal Party government led by Leah Finocchiaro. We have their unbridled support. They are actively encouraging investment in the basin. They see it as the opportunity for them to really build their economy. My view is that there are actually very few hurdles in front of us now. So, we've got a supportive government, we've got an effective regulatory regime. Activity is really starting to ramp up in this basin. We have existing pipelines in place, which are relatively small, but will allow for the initial supply of gas out of this basin into the local NT market. And we think it's really important to support the local people of the territory first. There are some pipeline connections in to Australia's east coast, but there's going to need to be expansion of those pipelines. And it's been really good to see companies like APA Group, Australia's largest pipeline owner, really leaning into this basin and enunciating their plans for further pipeline development. So, I think a lot of the hurdles now are behind us, and we're really on the upward ramp towards initial production and then potentially, much bigger production to both get Australia's east coast supplied, but also to provide energy to the entire region. We've got LNG export terminals already installed in Darwin and Gladstone that need more gas supply. Gas is one of the fastest growing energy sources in the world. And so, we see a huge opportunity, and I think a lot of those hurdles are now behind us.
Well, Empire certainly has assembled uh, some strong artillery. You've acquired a gas plant. You've recently raised some money. You've got gas contracts in place with the Northern Territory government. Tell us about the recent capital raise. You've apparently it was very heavily oversubscribed.
Yeah, so we did a $28 million placement a few weeks ago. That was priced at 16 cents a share with a 2-year 1-for-2 attaching option at 24 cents a share. That was a very well supported raise. We had to actually scale back a number of our investors in that raise to fit them in. But also, we recognise that as a company with over 3,000 shareholders, it's important for us to give an opportunity to all shareholders to participate on the same terms. So we've also carried out an SPP, same deal terms. We launched that deal seeking to raise approximately $3 million, but we've seen incredibly strong support. Nearly 600 shareholders have participated in that raise, and so we'll be taking $7 million under that SPP, and we're very appreciative for the support of all of our shareholders who have participated. That $35 million that we've brought in really sets us up very well. So we're about to carry out the biggest fracture stimulation job in Australian history. It's across a 3-kilometre horizontal section in the Carpentaria 5H well we drilled last year, which was a cracking well. But also it means that we can, with the extra money we've raised, we can now really start to focus on getting the gas plant installed. So we've got one final approval that we're working through with traditional owners in the NT government. We have all of the environmental approvals in place. We're just getting a sign off from traditional owners to amend an existing agreement with them to allow us to sell what we call test gas, so selling gas in the appraisal phase. As soon as that's done and we get the sign off from the government, we can then do two things. First of all, it unlocks another $30 million of funding under our facility with Macquarie, and we really appreciate their support. But also it means we can start building the gas plant. So as soon as that's done, we'll be out in the field installing the gas plant. We're very fortunate that there's a pipe that runs straight through our tenement. So we're building the gas plant right next to the pipe, and we can start selling our first gas.
Wow, will you be the first mover in gas sales in the area?
Well, we and Tamboran are both working on plans to move into production. I think we're both very close to that point. Who will be the first, I don't know, but fundamentally, the Northern Territory government and the people of the Northern Territory, they're very short gas, so they need multiple sources of supply. We both have contracts with the NT government to sell that gas, and we're delighted to play our part in energy security for the Northern Territory first, and then ultimately Australia more broadly.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to sound like we were pinning the tail on the donkey, as a pun for an oil pump, but I think the basin shows very strong potential for Australia's future. I've been speaking with Alex Underwood, who's the managing director for Empire Energy Group Limited on the ASX EEG, OTC Markets EEGUF. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we're looking forward to seeing what's happening in the near future.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
My pleasure.